Alright guys, it's Chef Barry, and I've talked about doing brisket on my channel for a while. I haven't really had a lot of time to do it. So we're going to start our 3-video series on beef brisket. The first 2 videos are going to be pellet review videos between the Green Mountain Grill Texas Beef Blend and then the Traeger Texas Beef Blend pellets that we're going to just do salt and pepper like Franklin Barbecue does on their brisket. So that way we're not taking away from the smoke and beef flavor for our brisket. Go. Okay. So we did our fresh ground black pepper and ground the salt into it to kind of make it more uniform. We're just doing salt and pepper, nothing fancy. Not Uncle Greg's brisket rub that we're going to do in the grand finale of our brisket series. So I always try to buy the best beef that I could buy locally without spending $140 a brisket like somebody I know has done. I won't name his name. But Costco usually has a really great briskets. They have prime grade briskets for generally cheaper than most places that I shop for briskets, like what used to be Cash and Carry, now Smart Food Service. So we got a prime grade brisket here, a 17.33 pound brisket at $3.48 a pound. So a $60 brisket. This thing's pretty substantial. It's gonna feed a bunch of people. So we're gonna start trimming. So when I prep my briskets, I trim off all this stuff. This big fat chunk of fat that goes into the decal where the flat and point meet. So we're gonna do that real quick. So we got our brisket cleaned up on the bottom side. It looks pretty good. We're gonna flip it over and trim the fat from the top. The fat on the top is good, but you also don't want too much. You want just enough to protect your meat, but not a crazy huge chunk of fat like this right here. So I try to trim down to about a 1/4 inch of fat to have it render and be good fat on the brisket. We're going to trim along here because I can feel it's pretty fatty. The rest of this seems to be pretty good. There's a couple fatty spots over here, right here as well. So I'm going to trim that up and then we'll season it up. So one tip I like to give everybody when doing a big piece of meat like a brisket is to season the bottom side first, so that way when you flip it, it's just easier to, you're not losing rub everywhere and whatnot. So we are gonna do our dry rub. And briskets are really big pieces of meat, so you want to season this fairly heavily. And normally when I do brisket, I use a mustard to bind the dry rub to the meat, but today we're not doing that. We're doing it different to cut out some variables for flavor, because we are going to do a blind taste test with the 2 different briskets from the different pellets. So the salt and pepper they grind together to try to help the pepper grind more even, but it ended up getting kind of powdery, so I would like it a little bit more coarser, but it will work because it worked really well for our pastrami we made when we ground our pepper that time. And then the same thing on the top side. And we're gonna let this sit for about 6 hours, soaking up the salt and pepper. Not quite dry brining, but marinating together, seasoning up. And you want to get all the little nooks and crannies on here. All right, well, our brisket looks good. And in 6 hours, I'm gonna put it on the smoker. I gotta clean it and switch out our pellets. So next time you see me is when our brisket. All right, guys, brisket's been on about 6 hours. I let it cook for about 4 to 5 hours before doing anything. And then I give it a little spray with dishwater is fine. Some people do vinegar and apple juice every 1.5 to 2 hours. Alright, so we got our brisket on and it's looking really good. We're gonna go to breakfast for an hour or so. Just let it keep hanging out in the smoker and check on it when we get back. Hey. Come on. Let's go. Let's look. See how it's just going? Yeah. All right, so 16 hours later, we have our brisket with the Green Mountain Grill Texas beef blend. We smoked it for 13 hours and let it rest for about 1.5 hours-ish or so. So we're gonna cut a piece off for Dad to try and see what he thinks. The bottom's a little tough. It's got a good smoke ring.
Ooh, yeah. Looks real good. You really smell that oak and hickory mesquite in there.
That is really good.
Real good.
Well, the Green Mountain Grill pellets are pretty good. We're gonna make some sliders and head over to work, and then we'll talk some more about it later.
That was really good.
That was really good. God, you old son of a bitch.
What?
Tank.
What did you do?
He got me with his choppers.
Oh.
Oops. Taste your tank.
Yeah. Lucky you, you're down there. Now I just hang out outside. You have like an area where I can sit.
Well, I'll go bring him outside so you can eat the fruit.
Oh, okay, got it.
Fat ass. His chops are good.
I know. I heard that. He's like,
I was like, get it,
he's like,
son.
Come on.
Alright guys, well, it's been a week or so, 2 weeks I think, since we smoked the brisket. I did use some of it for some Texas Twinkies. I was experimenting with a recipe for that. It turned out great. Hickory, oak, and mesquite was really, really good. I would definitely use it again. The Green Mountain Grill pellets are a great value. They're from Sportsman's Warehouse, like $16 I think for a 28-pound bag or 30-pound bag. The Traeger Texas blend is a 20-pound bag for 20 bucks. So we're gonna do one of those sooner than later to get our Texas beef blend pellet comparison, which one's the best done. Also, when I was up late with my house guests watching YouTube and other things, they asked if I wrap my briskets in the butcher paper stuff, and I've never personally done that, so we'll do a brisket video wrapping versus unwrapping. We'll have a wrapped brisket and unwrapped brisket, so we'll have that too. We'll be cooking a lot of brisket in the near future, so stay tuned. This was part 1 of a part 3 series of beef Texas pellet reviews.